Hi guys, John Riley, the junior high pastor here at Emmanuel Faith, coming at you via video because I'm not feeling too good. I've been sick. I was really hoping I was going to be feeling better and could be at church, but the way I am right now, this is being filmed just before the evening on Saturday. I'm like, nope, not a good idea. So I'm making this brief video to show as the lesson. Now, honestly, I could have asked my interns, Betsy or Isaac, and said, guys, you teach the lesson. I know that they're good at it and they could have done it, but the truth is I'm just not a person. I just don't sell fish. And so I didn't want to hand that off to them. Sell fish. I'm not a selfish person.
Welcome to Seattle!
At Pike Place Fish Market, you'll see lots of flying fish. But we saw more.
Come on, ladies, 1 pound fish. Come on, ladies, 1 pound fish. 1 pound fish. Have a look, 1 pound fish. Have a look, 1 pound fish. Very, very good, 1 pound fish. Very, very cheap, 1 pound fish. 6 pound, 5 pound, 1 pound each.
Just so you know, these fish are for sale as well.
Do you see what I'm saying? I said I don't sell fish. That's not the way we normally say it. We don't say I don't sell fish. I hopefully want to say I'm not a selfish. That's what I wanted to say, person. And today's lesson's actually all about being selfish. Now, certainly there are times in my life when I can be selfish, but I try and follow the Lord's example and put others first. Today's story is the follow-up. We're in Luke chapter 3 in this all-church series called This Is Our Story. I said Luke chapter 3. I don't know why I said that. We're in Luke chapter 15. And in Luke chapter 15, there are 3 stories. Last week we hit the first 2. Lost sheep and lost coin. Wow, can you hear the geese? Check it out. I wonder if I can flip this around. So we got these 3 stories. Last week's was the fish, not the fish. We're not trying to sell fish. We had a lost sheep and a lost coin. And the shepherd left everything and found it. The woman swept out the whole house and found it. Last Wednesday, we had a quiz show and it was really cool. The 8th grade guys cleaned up. Rumor has it, it's come back to me that Daniel Hill, who answered a lot of the questions correctly for the 8th grade guys, that he actually watched the sermon from Pastor Ryan online just before coming to church that night. That really helped. That's actually a great idea. We're not having the quiz thing this next Wednesday because it's all church worship night. Junior high will meet in the main worship center this particular Wednesday. And then after next week's lesson, we'll have the quiz show again coming up. Looking forward to that. So this week we have the story of the prodigal son. That's an interesting word, prodigal. It comes straight from the Latin. And the word prodigal in the Latin means, it describes someone who wastes something, who throws something away, who squanders something, that ruins something because it was valuable and they've messed it up. And that's exactly what happens in the story of this young guy who really turns out to be very much a person who sells fish. I mean, who is selfish. So let's check it out. It's just these 2 verses. We're only looking at these 2 verses this time. The book of Luke, chapter 15, verses 11 and 12.
The parable of the lost son. Jesus continued, there was a man who had 2 sons. The younger one said to his father, Father, give me my share of the estate. So he divided the property between them.
So there were 2 sons. That means there were 2 brothers of this father. And perhaps I started to wonder, like, was there some conflict? Maybe this younger brother didn't like living there because the older brother was such a jerk to him. Maybe he was always rubbing things in his face. Maybe, I don't know. There's another story in the Bible of Jacob and Esau in the book of Genesis, chapters 25 and 26. It tells their story and how they didn't get along very good and how the younger one aspired to take stuff from the older one. And there was conflict and there was anger and there was thieving and there was nastiness. But I really don't think this story is about the brothers not getting along so well. If it was, it would have said that in the description of this prodigal. Instead, it doesn't say anything about that. Instead, it just says he comes to his dad and says, Dad, give me my inheritance. Now, it's hard to put ourselves in this place today. It's hard to imagine what that would look like in the culture that we live in today. Dad, give me my inheritance. The reason this is such a shocking thing to say, it was then and it would be today, because it's basically saying to the father, I don't want relationship with you. I only care about your money. In fact, it'd be better for me if you were dead, because then I get what I want. It's interesting that this story's in the scriptures because Jesus tells it to help us relate to or see how we end up behaving as people. Now, if you think about sin, you might always think of just this, I don't know what comes to your mind, but it's interesting that this is a severed relationship between this son and this father. And every time in life when you and me, when we sin, we're actually severing the connection, our relationship with God. We're saying to God, God, I wish you were dead. You're dead to me, in other words. That's what the son says to his father. You are dead to me. I just want the money. So it seems outrageous that the father agreed to give him this money. The father would have anything to do with this. It's like really surprising. In our culture, the only thing that's similar to this is the way that parents lavish their inheritance of the children onto them and send them off to do wild living in college today. And so maybe it's not that different in some ways. A lot of parents do that and let their kids just go do craziness and do whatever they want, spending all this money and going nuts at school when they go to... I know a lot of stories of young people who've gone away to college and flamed out, gotten involved in drugs, messed up their brains, taken so much drugs and stuff, and then they've had to come back home and have their parents take care of them or try and find jobs and fail out of stuff. A lot of people have gotten in a lot of trouble with wild living. Now, this week's message isn't necessarily about the consequences of this, what this young man does. We'll talk about that more next week. What this is just about that whole ask of saying, hey, Dad, you're dead to me. Give me the inheritance. And the father's saying, okay, if that's what you want, this is what you can have. And God, interestingly, does that to us. We'll ask him for things, and he'll say, if that's what you want, and he'll let us have it, even if it's to our detriment. So next week, we'll look more about the consequences of sin and what ended up happening to this young man as a result. But today, the important takeaway, and what I want you to talk about in your groups, is how sin always severs our connection, both with God and other people. Selfishness, living for yourself, selling fish, being selfish, leads to sin, which leads to severed relationship between us and God and between us and the people that we're around. Okay, I'll be sending you to your groups in just a moment. But remember, we're doing this whole church series, all of us doing it together. So when your parents ask you what you studied, what you learned in junior high today, remember to tell them the Pastor John said that it's not good to sell fish. That's the main point, the main takeaway. See how that conversation goes. When they say, what, why? Don't sell fish? I'll tell them, remember, that selling fish always hurts our relationship between us and God and our connection and relationship with other people. So don't sell fish. Go to your groups and talk some more about that. Hope to see you on Wednesday at the worship time. Don't sell fish?